The Senate will come to order. Leading us in prayer today is Father Joe Holshauser from St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church here in Pierre. Following the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our Senate page of the day, Tommy White from Sully Buttes High School in Oneida.
Let us pray. O God, our Lord, you are great and eternal, wonderful in glory. You keep your promises to those who serve you, consecrate you with your presence, with the path that we should follow. Lord, kindle in the hearts of our senators the true love of peace, the passion of your unfolding providence, and the courage to trust you come what may. May the faith they confess with their lips, with such hope in their hearts, that they may live each day with integrity, cleanse them from every thought displeasing to your kindness and goodness, that with pure hearts, clear minds, calm hope, they may honor you. We pray that you continue to bless each and every one of our senators this day and every day. We ask this from you who live and reign, God, forever and ever.
Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, Blanc, Harley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, and Zickman. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Approval of the journal.
The Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 24th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move adoption of the report. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, at this time I'm going to welcome our Doctor of the Day, if you would stand. The Doctor of the Day today is Dr. Jenna Wickersham. She is a family medicine physician and serves as site director at the Pierre Rural Family Medical Residency Program, obviously here in Pierre. She received her DO degree at Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine in Kirksville and completed the Sioux Falls Family Medicine Residency Program. Following residency, she practiced at Avera in Pierre, and still does, and she is a member of the South Dakota State Medical Association. She would like to thank South Dakota legislators for their continued support of the mission to train family physicians for rural practice here in South Dakota. To date, 85% of her program's graduates are still practicing in rural South Dakota. So that's good news. Let's welcome her to the Senate. Thank you for helping us. Work a little lobbying into the Doctor of the Day announcement.
Senator Crabtree moves that the Senate page Resolution 3 be adopted.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Senate page Resolution 3. Are there any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, pages, if you would, please stand in front of the Senate. I want to introduce these guys and their sponsors to the Senate and those that are listening at home. Senator Marty, Esther Burkhalter, Senator Smith, Richard Carlson, Senator Reed, Lee Decker, Senator Miskimmons, Owen Kaufman, Senator Shanefish, Danny Katalik, Senator Crabtree, Quinn Nielsen, and Rachel Stephenson, Senator Carr, Madison Olson, Senator Sauter, Ada Ryder, Senator Peterson, Grant Roth, Senator Melhoff, Tommy White. So, pages, I just want to say this. Welcome to the history books. In the last 2 weeks, you have been part of making law happen here. All the things that have gone on, everything from ag to judicial to economic development, energy to the good folks over in appropriations, all of that. All the good things that are happening wouldn't have happened without you. And I will tell you this, you know, there's lots of challenges and there's lots of people that talk about the world and the world not maybe looking all that bright right now. And I will tell you, when I see you guys and I see how bright you are and how energetic you are and the fact that you're all having fun back in this hallway all the time and that you care about the future of this state and the families that reside here, I am 100% confident because of you that we'll be able to pass that torch and the best days for South Dakota lie ahead because of you. And so with that, I thank you for your service, and I know my fellow senators do as well.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Page Resolution 3? Senator Larson.
Pages, we thank you so much for your service here. Now you've got to see how the sausage was made in this grand experiment of democracy. I'm going to read you one little quote that I wrote to a friend, that a friend of mine wrote to me the other day. And I specifically was asking him, you know, what is it something good I can leave these pages with? Because this is such a, I think it's a profound experience. At least at this time in your lives, everything is just experiential and so interesting and affects you for so long. And I was looking for inspiration, and so my friend wrote me this, and this is about the Capitol building here because it's such a beautiful place that now you've got to experience. He said, "What gives me goosebumps every time I visit Pierre is the Capitol building. The Capitol in Pierre is a palace, not to a king, but to the people, to us, our sacred agreement to respect each other, to not turn our land or our lives over to kings or bullies of any sort. Instead, we share control over our land and our lives, and we deliberate in good faith, specifically faith in each other to make arguments based on a sincere desire to protect everyone's place at the table, the political table, the economic table, and the actual table in the restaurant where we serve everybody, regardless of race, creed, or any other aspect of humanity. We dedicate the most beautiful building in South Dakota to the greatest thing that we do, having faith in each other to govern ourselves better than any king or bully could." So I urge you guys, now that you've had this experience, please keep in touch with us. And I'm really excited for all the wonderful things that you are going to go and do in the rest of your careers and lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Pays Resolution 3. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc. Carly. Crabtree. Davis. Dibert. Duhamel. Foster. Grove. Hone. Howard. Hulse. Jensen. Carr. Colbeck. Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miskimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Wipf. Sickman. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas, 1 excused.
So Senate Page Resolution 3, having received a majority vote of the members elect, the President declares the resolution adopted. Let's give him a round of applause. Senator Miskimmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. Personal privilege, please.
That's granted.
Today, I'd like to welcome some friends from back home in Mitchell. The Kaufman family, Owen's parents and his sister are here, and I think maybe a couple friends also. But we'd like to thank Dan and Carrie and Carly for letting Owen come and spend the week with us. I want to report to you that this group of pages finally brought Owen out of his shell. So thank you very much. Let's recognize him, please.
Welcome. Senator Zickman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President and members of the Senate, today I rise to recognize and welcome distinguished guests joining us from the Civil Air Patrol. Would you folks please stand there to my right at the top? Specifically, the dedicated members of the South Dakota Wing Civil Air Patrol. The Civil Air Patrol serves as the official civilian auxiliary of the United States Air Force, the best service group in the country, the Air Force. And has proudly upheld, that's what I was in, upheld its mission of emergency services, aerospace education, and cadet development for more than 8 decades. Across our state and nation, it's the volunteer members stand ready to assist in search and rescue operations, disaster relief efforts, humanitarian missions, and community support. Here in South Dakota, the South Dakota Wing exemplifies the highest standards of service, leadership, and citizenship. Its cadets develop discipline, character, and a commitment to excellence, while its senior members generously volunteer their time and expertise to serve our communities. Their work strengthens public safety, fosters youth leadership, and promotes a deeper understanding of aerospace and aviation. We are grateful for their unwavering commitment to service before self and for the vital role they play in supporting our state and nation. Please join me in extending a warm welcome and our sincere appreciation to the members of the South Dakota Wing of the Civil Air Patrol. Please stand and thank them for.
Welcome.
Mr. President, we did do some kind of a survey last year when we were talking about their budget. They are under the military, Department of the Military, and that's who they have to answer to. For their budget, we did a kind of a survey on what it would cost us, the taxpayers, for their services provided to the state of South Dakota, to the people of the state of South Dakota. Came out to about $1.6 million. Their budget is about $60,000 a year, folks. So all that they give us and to the people of South Dakota, we need to be very grateful for. So thank you, Civil Air Patrol.
Very good. Communications.
We have two letters from Governor Larry Roden addressed to the President and members of the Senate, asking the Senate to consider board and commission appointments, one appointment, one reappointment. The full letters will be printed in today's journal if you are interested in more detail on either. Those executive appointments include the appointment of Roy Lindsay Jr., Lake County, Madison, South Dakota, to the South Dakota Lottery Commission, and the reappointment of James Breckenridge, Minnehaha County, Sioux Falls, to the South Dakota Building Authority.
And the President Pro Tem has referred both of those appointments, Jim Breckenridge and Roy Lindsay, to the Committee on Commerce and Energy. Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Senate State Affairs reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 133 be amended and do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 134 do pass. Senate Bill 145 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Submitted, Jim Melhoff, Chair. The Committee on Senate Appropriations reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendation. House Bill 1056 do pass. Submitted, Ernie Otten, Chair. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Transportation reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bill 1188 be amended and do pass, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1189 do pass, and having been certified as uncontested, being placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Randy Dybert, Chair. The Committee on Senate Health and Human Services reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the same with the following recommendations. Senate Bills 211 and 221 be amended and do pass. Submitted, Kevin Jensen, Chair. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Taxation reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. Senate Bills 109, 191, 192, 212, and 230 were tabled. Senate Bill 199 do pass. Senate Bill 228 be amended and do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. And Senate Bills 243 and SJR 506 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Submitted, Sue Peterson, Chair. And finally, Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared Senate Bill 73 and finds the same correctly enrolled. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
Messages.
Mr. President, I have the honor to return Senate Bill 73, which has passed the House without change. Also, I have the honor to transmit House Bills 1040, 1089, 1138, 1199, 1220, 1254, and 1311, which have all passed the House, and your favorable consideration is requested. Respectfully, Patricia Miller, Chief Clerk.
Motions and resolutions.
Senator Carr moves that Senate Bill 96 be deferred to Monday, February 23rd, 2026, the 26th legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries.
Senator Nelson announced her intention to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 218 lost. Senator Nelson moves that the Senate do now reconsider the vote by which 218 lost.
Been moved by Senator Nelson and seconded to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 218 lost. Are there any remarks? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, to reconsider, I'd really appreciate, I have an amendment that I would like to move after this vote. And then also too, one of my fellow senators was unable to get the chance to speak, and I'd like to have her be able to speak today.
All right, further remarks on the motion to reconsider? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is Senator Nelson's motion to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 218 lost. This is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel. Foster. Grove. Hone. Howard. Hulse. Jensen. Carr, excused. Colbeck. Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miss Gimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Zickman. Mr. President, we have 17 yeas, 16 nays, with 2 excused.
So the motion to reconsider, having failed to receive an affirmative vote of the majority of the members elect, the president declares the motion lost. Consideration of committee reports.
Senator Melhoff moves that the reports of the Standing Committee on Commerce and Energy on Senate Bill 76 and Senate Bill 204 and the Committee on Ag and Natural Resources on Senate Bill 124, the Committee on Judiciary on Senate Bill 159, the Committee on Education on Senate Bill 229, and the Committee on State Affairs on Senate Bill 239 all be adopted.
Is there a second? That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. First reading of Senate Bill.
The President declared that Senate Bill 199 changed prime sponsor from Senator Carr to Senator Lapke at their request.
First reading of House bills.
House Bill 1040, revise the child support obligation schedule. House Bill 1089, modify the distributions of revenues collected from severance taxation on new permits. House Bill 1138, require the licensure of non-medical home care and provide a penalty therefor. House Bill 1199, address prior authorization and reporting requirements by utilization review organizations and health carriers. House Bill 1220, regulate the sale of nicotine products and provide a penalty therefor. House Bill 1254, exempt any soil amendment used exclusively for agricultural purposes from tax. And House Bill 1311, require the reporting of funding given by certain persons and governments to institutions under the control of the Board of Regents and the South Dakota Board of Technical Education.
And the President Pro Tem has made the following committee assignments: to Senate Ag and Natural Resources, House Bill 1254, to Senate Committee on Appropriations, House Bill 1089, to Senate Education, House Bill 1311, to Senate Health and Human Services, House Bills 1138, 1199, and 1220, to Senate Judiciary, House Bill 1040. In addition, the following bills that were read on a previous day have been assigned today, and they are House Bill 1162 to Senate Health and Human Services, House Bill 1108 to Senate Judiciary, House Bill 1286 to Senate State Affairs, House Bill 1253 to Senate Tax, and committee referral has been waived for House Bill 1041 pursuant to Joint Rule 6D1. In addition, the following concurrent resolution, which was read on a previous day, has been assigned to Senate Judiciary. That is HCR 6015. And we are up to the consent calendar.
Senator Melhoff requested that Senate Bill 219 be removed from today's consent calendar. Remaining on the calendar, Senate Bill 87, clarify and establish requirements related to forensic medical examinations. Senate Bill 236, create the County and Township Infrastructure Fund for the accounting, safekeeping, and allocation of unobligated rural access infrastructure fund monies. House Bill 1013, clarify the purposes permitted for certain offenders to operate a motor vehicle. House Bill 1014, modify the surcharge for a responding party in a forcible entry and detainer action. House Bill 1022, revise and repeal provisions related to the Crime Victims Compensation Program. And House Bill 1111, modify the requirements for obtaining an agricultural processor's lien.
Items on the consent calendar were reported out of committee with no dissenting votes and are not subject to debate. Only questions for clarification purposes are appropriate. There will be one vote taken for all bills on the consent calendar. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, the question before the Senate is, shall the items on the consent calendar pass? When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr excused. Oh, sorry, unexcused. Did he? I'm sorry, sir. What did you say? Colbeck? Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miskimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Souter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Mr. President, we have 34 yeas with one excused.
So the items on the consent calendar having received a majority vote of the members-elect, the President declares the consent calendar items passed. Are there any questions on the titles? Seeing none, they are.
Matters to my constituents, and I would imagine it matters to yours as well. Senate Bill 10 seeks to make sure that large broadband providers don't continue using and selling our constituents' information without their knowledge and consent for a purpose that it wasn't collected for. Now, you may ask why broadband providers and not Google, and I believe that answer to be simple. Google is a website that's free to use with multiple competitors like DuckDuckGo or Yahoo, providing consumers options. Broadband access, however, is not optional in today's market, and consumers often don't have options on providers. In fact, 48% of South Dakotans only have access to one provider, Mr. President. In today's tech world, everything from the Department of Health licensing to paying your state sales tax requires internet access. It's a public utility, which is why the legislature spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the last few years building out that network, something we have never done for the Googles of the world. While the federal government has enacted some protections for data privacy information, allowing some information to be opt-out and some information to be opt-in, 20 states have enacted additional data protection laws, including California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Minnesota, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oregon, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Virginia. I would also note 15 states are currently working their way through the process of pending bills. While each state has taken a different approach, each state has seen the importance of data privacy and has taken steps to protect their consumers. So what does the bill do? Section 1 of the bill is defining what consumer personal data is. It's talking about information such as your date of birth, your ethnicity, your political beliefs, your religion, your financial information, your government-issued numbers, your health information, information pertaining to minors and children, and then your billing information. A broadband provider is being addressed in Section 2, saying that they're not allowed to disclose or sell that information unless it's permitted in this bill. Section 3 allows internet providers to sell customer information as long as consumers opt in, which means all that information would be available for them the same way it is now, as long as the consumer says it's okay. Section 4 goes in for the exceptions for when a provider may disclose that information for the purpose of providing the service the customer is actually paying for. This means anything needed to actually operate or provide the service is allowed. They're also allowed to comply with any legal process, court, or administrative order for any billing or collection-related services, to protect the rights of the broadband provider from fraudulent use of the network. And then obviously we have 3 different exceptions, making sure that for emergency services to be able to provide help. Section 5, providers can't keep personally identifiable information for longer than it's needed, but they are allowed to keep it as an aggregate set, which means they can't keep stuff that's personally identifiable that isn't related to the actual service being provided. Section 6 says that providers can use information for their own advertising services to their customers, but they do have to provide an opt-out of their own advertisements if that's what the consumer wants to do. Section 7 clarifies that nothing in this act stops providers from collecting or selling non-personally identifiable information as part of a larger aggregate. Section 8 requires providers take reasonable steps to secure information, and if they do take reasonable steps, they're not held liable. Section 9, providers must notify the consumer on how their data is being used. That's transparency. Section 10, providers must notify if there's a material change in how they're using your information. And Section 11 states that customers are allowed to authorize other parties to be able to access that information if they want. Finally, Section 12 waives these requirements for the small local providers. This is an attempt not to burden small businesses, a practice done by both the FCC as well as other states that have enacted broadband protections. In fact, this exact language was copied out of Texas's law, and it directly references a category determined by the federal government already in the broadband telecommunication field, as well as recognizing that small providers have significantly smaller data sets that less frequently hold value to advertisers looking to purchase consumer data. The federal government requirements allow different regulations with this threshold, and I believe it's a fair way for South Dakota to start their digital privacy. This bill allows South Dakotans more transparency on how they can protect their personally identifiable digital data. It does so in a way laying the foundation for future citizen protections with digital data. South Dakota hasn't done anything to protect our citizens' private digital data, and we need to start somewhere. I would propose protecting our citizens from large utility companies and their ability to sell our private information, both about us and our families, without the consent of the individual to be an appropriate place to start. I would ask the body to support Senate Bill 110.
Thank you for the remarks on Senate Bill 110. Senator Colbeck.
Yes, Mr. President, I have an amendment, 110C. I'd like to move it at this time. It's been published.
And there is a second. All right. You have moved 110C. Do you have any remarks on that motion to
Yes.
amend?
I do. Just from my experience in the past, it's my recollection that the FCC expressly denied any kind of small business carve-outs into the attempt to impose ISP privacy regulations. So I don't think that the argument is correct. Now, while Section 12 and what my amendment does is remove that, I think that if you want to protect consumers' data, I think we should protect all consumer data. The sponsor did a great job. A lot of the people only have one provider, and we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars. And we have spent that over 90% of the landmass of state of South Dakota. So basically, this bill is going to protect about 10% of the landmass. I think we should protect it all because we have spent millions, and most people only have one provider.
All right, thank you. Further remarks on the Colbeck motion to amend? Senator Roll. State your question.
I'm curious if knowing the senator has opposed the bill in the past, would the amendment gain the support of the senator?
Senator Colbeck, do you wish to answer that question?
We'll find that out when I vote.
Guess not. Senator Roll, further remarks?
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example for the body of what we like to call a poison pill. It's not necessarily something that I would disagree with, but when you look at how this has been done in other states and how this is done on the federal level, they start these requirements more strict on the bigger companies, and they give small companies more time to be able to work through this process and make it work. Quite frankly, I've never brought in an amendment, got it on a bill, and then not supported that bill. I certainly think that that's the case. If this amendment does get on, I'll still champion the bill, but I believe that the intention of the sponsor is to try to kill this bill in the next Chamber's committee. And this would make significantly more opponents. I believe that we should focus on the bill that's in front of us and make sure that we're guaranteeing some of these protections, because while it might only be 20% of the landmass, I would wager to bet it's over 75%, well, I'll say 70% of the actual population.
All right, further remarks on the amendment? Does anyone wish to speak before Senator Colbeck speaks a second time?
All right, since
Senator
we're playing these
Colbeck.
games, I will answer the question. Yes, if the amendment passes, I will vote, because the good senator from Aberdeen is wrong.
Okay, further remarks on the amendment? Senator Carley.
A question for the prime on the original bill.
State your question.
Yeah, I was wondering, I like the concept of not putting a burden also on small business, but my question is, couldn't that small business, to avoid that burden, couldn't it just decide to not disclose any of that customer's information to third parties anyway, and then they wouldn't have the burden of working with the customers?
Senator Roll, you wish to respond to that question?
I do, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, they would have that ability. Really, when we're looking at these FCC rules, it's important to note that it was passed in, I believe, 2015, and later Congress, I believe in 2017, actually stripped the enforcement mechanism for them to be able to enforce it on these bigger guys that are over 1,500 employees. So while you can say they have the same rules, only one person's rules are being enforced, but the smaller companies on the federal level, in a way to not penalize them, they actually have significantly easier reporting requirements, because they don't capture the same information as easily as the big ones. All the little ones I talked to in South Dakota have all said that they do not do that. I can't verify that, though, and that's part of the problem, is we have no idea what these companies are selling about us because there's nothing protecting us.
You have further remarks, Senator Carley? No. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Seeing no further remarks, this is a voice vote. Roll call has been requested. Is he supported? He is supported. Question before the Senate is Senator Colbeck's motion to amend Senate Bill 110. This is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc. Aye. Carley. Aye. Crabtree. Aye. Davis. No. Dibert. Aye. Duhamel. No. Foster. Aye. Grove. No. Hone. Aye. Howard? Aye. Hulse? No. Jensen? Aye. Carr? Aye. Colbeck? Aye. Lapke? Aye. Larson? No. Marty? Aye. Melhoff? Aye. Miss Gimmons? Aye. Nelson? Aye. Otten? Aye. Perry? Peterson? No. Pischke? Reed? Roll? Souter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Dibert votes no. Foster? Mr. President, we have 20 yeas, 14 nays, 1 excused.
So the motion to amend carries. And we are back on the bill, Senate Bill 110 as amended. Further remarks? Senator Roll, do you have a closing?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to debate Senate Bill 110. We spend a lot of time in this body debating what the majority of our districts want. I'll be the first to admit there's a lot of issues where our districts are divided. Some constituents support a bill and others in our districts don't. We often must search in the weeds to find what truly has support, and sometimes you just have to use your best judgment. But this isn't one of those issues. I challenge each of you to think back to your last campaign event or Cracker Barrel. If you ask that room, do you think your internet providers you pay a monthly fee to that are a utility that are required in the modern age should be able to sell your personal information, your child's personal information, without your knowledge or consent? How many hands would go up in support? This is not a divisive topic with the public. In fact, it's overwhelmingly slanted in favor of data privacy protections. It's only divisive for the companies profiting off our citizens' data without our citizens' knowledge or consent. We need Senate Bill 10, and we need a summer study to dive deeper into data privacy politics. We're woefully behind the curve, and our constituents are the ones paying the price. Senate Bill 110 is a foundational piece to get the train on the track and moving in the right direction. It lets those parties in the broadband data collection practice know that South Dakota's legislature is serious about protecting our constituents' privacy, and they need to come to the table in an effort for broader policy protections in the future. This is also something clearly defined in the South Dakota Republican platform. Section 7, subsection 6 says, data protection. We support the protection of personally identifiable information. We oppose the unethical collection of personally identifiable information. Such information should be obtained with consent.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 110. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Miss Gimmons, what was your vote? Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Kolbeck. Mr. President, we have 28 yeas, 6 nays, 1 excused.
So Senate Bill 110 having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Senate Bill 126, an act to increase the amount of value exempt from property taxes under a tax relief program for disabled veteran and surviving spouses.
Senate Bill 126, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Hone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members of the Senate, Senate Bill 126, you have handouts at your desk if you would like to look at those while I talk about this. But it increases the property tax exemption from $200,000 to $300,000 for permanent and totally disabled veterans. The average home value in South Dakota is between $300,000 to $350,000. Home values have continued to increase year after year. Some towns in South Dakota have seen a 5-year increase from approximately 30 to 55%. 22 states offer a full property tax exemption for 100% disabled veterans. This legislation is for permanent and totally disabled veterans. Examples of a veteran that is permanent and totally disabled could be double amputees, triple amputees, spinal cord injuries, loss of eyesight, etc. A P&T, permanent and totally disabled rating, is something that one can never recover from. Many of our permanent and totally disabled veterans are on fixed incomes. Our veterans gave years of their lives, their health, and in many cases, their long-term earning ability in service to our country. As one veteran told me, they gave their health for us. This is a targeted and responsible measure that honors those who have sacrificed the most. Now is the time for South Dakota to show our support to our permanent and totally disabled veterans, along with the 22 other states that already have full property tax exemptions. I respectfully ask for your support on Senate Bill 126.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126? Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't enjoy rising to oppose this bill, but I am. And I'm going to begin by saying that I am a veteran. I took that oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that oath never expires. I served because I believed in duty, in sacrifice, and in responsibility. My mom also served shortly after Vietnam. My grandpa served in Korea. My husband and I both served stateside during the first Gulf War. 4 of my husband's siblings served and 2 of their spouses. 3 uncles between us, and our oldest son is currently active duty serving in the Navy. I know I did not serve in order to come back here and shift a greater tax burden onto my neighbors, and I don't know any veterans who did. As amended, this bill increases the exemption for permanently and totally disabled veterans and surviving spouses from $200,000 of assessed value to $300,000. The median home price in South Dakota is $330,000. This is a $100,000 increase, a 50% increase in the exemption. And we have to ask ourselves, where does this end? Are we going to come back next year and raise it again to $600,000, to $900,000? Are we moving towards eliminating property taxes entirely for one group of homeowners? If that is the direction, then we need to debate it openly. But we should not continue expanding exemptions incrementally without acknowledging the cumulative impact, because property taxes don't just disappear. When we exempt more value, that cost shifts. Counties, cities, and school districts still must fund roads, law enforcement, fire protection, and local services. When the taxable base shrinks, that burden is pushed onto other homeowners. And I have a really hard time reconciling that with why I served, or why my mom and grandpa served, or why my son is now serving. None of us served so we could be placed in a protected category while our neighbors pay more. We did not serve to take from others. And I especially think about people like my youngest son. He's surrounded by parents and a brother who are serving. He would have loved to have served his country, but he was physically unable to because he's completely deaf in one ear. He does not get compensated for that. It does not qualify for any Social Security disability. He did not get the opportunity to wear the uniform. He did not get the opportunity to earn benefits, and yet under policies like this, he could very well end up paying a larger share of property taxes because we continue carving out broader exemptions for others. I will not do that, and that should give us pause. I respect veterans. I support veterans. I am a veteran. But our service should never be used as political cover for avoiding real property tax reform. South Dakotans are frustrated because the system itself needs structural reform. Carve-outs and expanding exemptions do not fix the system. They simply rearrange who pays, like rearranging the ships on the Titanic. It's still going down. Seniors on fixed incomes, young working families, and other veterans are going to pay more. And we must also be honest about eligibility. The classification of permanently and totally disabled is tied to a VA rating system, not Social Security, that many veterans know is built on what is often called VA math. It's a combined formula that does not always reflect what the average taxpayer thinks of as total incapacity. You combine ratings, so you can have a 10% rating because you broke your finger while you were on active duty. That's a real example. You can be 10% disabled because you have some hearing loss. You can be 25% disabled. You have bad knees. You have, a bad back. So they add all those up. You can be over a 100% disabled veteran. And totally and permanently disabled veterans, many are still working. There is a different rating that the VA system has where it actually acknowledges that you're unable to hold employment. So the point here is not to attack veterans. The point is to recognize that when we tie large and expanding tax exemptions to bureaucratic classifications, the category can grow and the tax base shrinks. SB 126 expands this exemption by 50% with no limiting principle and no comprehensive solution for everyone else. The best way to honor veterans is not by creating an ever-growing exemption that shifts the tax burden onto everyone else. Because there are other ways to honor veterans without hurting others, especially when, again, there's no means test, no limiting factor, not on income, not on home value, nothing. The best way to honor veterans is to fix the property tax system so that every homeowner, the widows, the young families, the veterans that are not disabled, the veterans that are only 20% disabled, every homeowner can afford to stay in their home. So I do respectfully ask for a no vote on this.
Thank you for the remarks on Senate Bill 126. Further remarks, Senator Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 126 is simple. It supports 100% disabled veterans in South Dakota. First of all, this is optional. No one was required or forced to take this exemption. If a veteran doesn't want to apply for it in fear of shifting on to their neighbors, then they don't. And we're talking about a very small population of people. From the statistics that we got back, there's no more than 7,000 veterans statewide that could qualify, and in reality, only about 4,000 people actually utilize the program. That's it. That's less than 1% or about 1% of the population. This isn't some sweeping giveaway. It is targeted relief for men and women who have already paid the price most of us will never understand. This program already exists. The only question that you're being asked today, yes or no, should it be updated as an amount? We're not debating whether or not we should give this program to them. I represent a district that has one of the highest populations of people that partake in this program, and I'll be voting yes today because I do think that housing prices have gone up and it's time to update the amount. That's what the question is here today, folks. That's it. I looked at the numbers. I looked at how it will impact the evaluation of the property in my district, one of the districts that it impacts the most, and I'm still voting yes today because the amount of shift that this will cause is almost like non-existent, to the point where there was nobody in the committee testifying about how it was going to blow up county budgets, and I haven't been reached out by any of my county commissioners about how it's going to cause a huge issue. So please vote yes for people like my own father, who's 100% disabled, and even somebody in our own body here that is from a generation that, to me, deserves relief in the sense that the housing costs have gone up. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126, Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to commend the good senator from Pennington County for her service and her family's service. Very much appreciated. Last Friday night, I had the opportunity to speak to a group of veterans called the Military Officers Association of America. And it was a very good opportunity for me to dialogue with them, talk about it. And in that group, there were two totally disabled veterans, and they approached me afterwards about this very bill. And I said, I like the chance of it passing, I support it, and I really hope it's a pittance for us to pay for the service that these individuals went through. And I please ask for your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126, Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not quite sure who would know this, so I don't know if it's the sponsor or the other one. Do we know the last time that this was increased and like how much of an increase from the last time?
So that's a question for the sponsor. We'll start with her. Senator Hone, do you wish to respond?
Sure, thank you for the question. It was first brought in 2017. That was the original bill. They came and asked for $250,000 property tax relief. The bill passed for only $150,000, and that's where it stayed until 2024. And then at that time, the request was for $250,000 plus a CPI, and they were given $200,000 with no CPI.
All right. Further remarks, Senator Grove? No. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126, Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I have conflicting information about that. I got this sheet from the department that says this was created in 2007 at $100,000 and then updated in 2019 to $150,000 and then updated in 2024 to $200,000. And now this is proposing to change it to $300,000. So, is the department wrong? Or is someone else wrong? I don't know, but now we're muddying the waters. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, you all know I'm a Vietnam veteran. I believe deeply in personal responsibility, equal treatment under the law, and a tax system that is fair to everyone. And that is why I cannot support this bill. While campaigning in Belle Fourche, I went to business and business, and I noticed there were several several elderly ladies working in different businesses, and they were 70-plus years old. And I asked them, why are they still working at basically my age? And they said to pay for my property tax. I just feel that this is a shift in property tax to people that can least afford it. I reluctantly stand here to oppose this because I am a veteran. But the state of South Dakota needs to do something to address our high property tax that are forcing people out of their homes. And I feel like that the state should address this, maybe look at what North Dakota has done for their property tax people. They give $1,600 to each homeowner a credit. In South Dakota, it's about time maybe that we start addressing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126. Further remarks? Senator Otten.
Well, on the bill in the past, I've always supported it, always bumped it up. But this 300,000, that gave me pause, because indeed it is a shift. Some areas will have a little more, depending on your population base and how many veterans that you've got in there disabled. I would venture to say that if you look at the stats, you'll find them going to the urban centers. That's where your medical care is, and that's where they'd be. Maybe some of the smaller towns around there. But really what I'm finding perplexing about this is we have a population base that is upset about property taxes, rightfully so. Won't get into how much mine went up again, but it's neither here nor there. But when we examine actually the core cause of why property taxes are going up, that we have never talked about. And it's called assessments, valuations. That's supply and demand. So when I do look at the structure in itself, and I do find, you know, just a few weeks ago I'd worked on one. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is called control. This is being mandated down to a county group that may or may not have the resources in which to give something. Just as Washington does to us, now we're doing it to them. And even though that it is minuscule, I talked to LRC too, maybe a 0.4% increase. Some areas might be a little higher than that. But again, I go back to Aunt Agnes and Uncle Ned. Worked hard all their life. While $10 may not mean a lot to somebody, but you know, it might be a trip to the grocery store. So while I do support the veterans, I've got them in my own family. This philosophically on how taxation should work is fundamentally wrong. And as we were searching for other mechanisms for other property tax relief, we actually looked at something called tax exemptions, $1.4, $1.6 billion. How do you get up to that kind of a number? You're looking at it. So I'd ask you just vote no.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 126. Senator Voida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really quickly, I just wanted to clear up some of that muddied water. I just went on to LRC, went to the code that we're talking about right here. Click on the 2024 bill that amended this, and it went from 150,000 to 200,000 in 24. So.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Zickman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to really speak on this, but let me clarify the years that it was. 150,000 was my bill, okay? That's when, right after I came in, after a couple of years, and we went to the 150,000. After that, I think in 2024, it went to 200,000. So I hope that clarifies it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also wasn't going to get up and talk on this bill. I love veterans as much as everybody else. My dad's a veteran. My brother's a Vietnam veteran. Another brother served in Korea during Desert Storm. So the heritage is in my family. But what we're doing here, a vote by doing this, you're not doing something for the veterans. You're causing somebody else to do. You're taking money out of somebody else's pocket and you're putting it in a veteran's pocket. If you want to help disabled veterans, and I don't often talk about what I do, but this is what I do. I donate every month to Tunnels to Tower Foundation and to Wounded Warriors Foundation. Every single month it's something that I do. It's coming out of my pocket. It's going to benefit somebody else. I'm not taking somebody's tax dollars and giving it to a preferred class. So I think that's the best way to help veterans and to feel good about doing it. And voting for this, not so much. Thank you.
Thank you for the remarks on Senate Bill 126. Senator Hone in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I apologize if I gave some erroneous information. My information came from the president of the South Dakota Veterans Council. So to the good senator's point from Minnehaha County, his is probably correct. I'm just going to say, once again, 22 other states offer full property tax exemptions. And we have, I thought we had about 850,000 South Dakotans. I heard a higher number this morning, but you have 4,000 veterans out of that 850,000 South Dakotans. And so that's like 0.47% of our population. These are permanent and totally disabled veterans. Once again, that is a rating that is something that one can never recover from. And so with that, I'm going to ask for your yes vote on Senate Bill 126. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 126. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 14 yeas, 20 nays, 1 excused.
So Senate Bill 126 having failed to receive an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill lost.
Senate Bill 135, an act to protect residents from increased utility costs and utility shortages caused by data centers and clarify authority to regulate data centers.
Senate Bill 135, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Carr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
You have an amendment. What is it?
I'd like to move it. I would. It's 135F as in finally Friday.
135F has been moved and seconded, and it's been distributed or posted. Would you like to speak to it at this time?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, this is the Data Center Protection Bill of Rights. Through the process, we've gotten some feedback. There was concern about 2 sections. Section 3 deals with electricity and the ratepayers protecting them. My understanding is this language is a more appropriate language to protect them. And the second change that you're going to see is it strikes Section 5. Section 5 has been something that we've been negotiating for a while. And our intent was to allow tax incentives to be used that are current, and no further tax exemptions would be allowed. I never want to mislead a body in a committee or this chamber, and so until I get provided with greater clarity on that language, I'm just going to strike it at this time as I'm working with our fine minds in LRC to provide clarity to that question about the tax exemptions and if they prohibit the rebates. So at this time, this is the bill that I'd like to talk about today on the floor, and I'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the Carr motion to amend? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the good senator who spoke before, taking on a tough task. And when we're looking at the amendment that is in front of us, this is one that I think we should all support. It does the things that we want to do, which is protect our electric consumers here, protect those who are consuming water here. We want to protect the folks that are here in the industry that is here today. And I would urge your support for the amendment.
All right, further remarks on the motion to amend? Seeing no further remarks, this is a voice vote. Roll call has been requested. Is she supported? How many you got? Can you stand back up if you supported it? I'm sorry. She is supported. It's a roll call vote on the motion to amend Senate Bill 135. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Carly votes no. Mr. President, we have 30 yeas, 4 nays, 1 excused.
So the motion to amend carries. And we are back on the bill, Senate Bill 135. Further remarks, Senator Carr.
Thank you. Appreciate that, members. Again, I only want to present something to you that I understand and can assure you what is happening in this bill. So at this point, what this bill does is it protects South Dakota residents from higher utility costs, potential water shortages, loss of local control caused by the hyperscale data centers. I think it ensures responsible growth without any of those hidden costs to our families and communities. And it puts South Dakota families, ratepayers, and communities first. We know that data centers are amongst the most energy-intensive facilities in the world. This bill guarantees that residential customers will not be forced to subsidize data centers through rate increases and cost shifting. It recognizes local control. Decisions about siting and scale remain local, not mandated by the state. And it protects our water. Water is finite and essential. Data centers must demonstrate compatibility with local water supplies. It's a pretty simple, straightforward bill. I'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 135? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 135. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Billhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Blanc, Hulse. Pardon, there was a cough. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas, 1 excused.
So, Senate Bill 135 having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Senate Bill 193, an act to clarify the definition of backup electric generation.
Senate Bill 193, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. A couple things that I'd like to point out to you here is this is talking about backup power generations for manufacturers, hospitals, other power users. So this only applies right now when you're over 100 megawatts in your total size. This is the key part to this right here that I think you should pay attention to. These facilities are not connected to the grid. They are not connected to the grid. So that's just this individual companies, this individual customers. It's their backup generations for their operations only, not connected to the grid where every home and every other business is set at. Here's some other things that go along with this. Is there's already reviews and permitting that exists at the local, state, and federal level for this type of generation. So again, plenty of reviews, plenty of checks at the local, state, and federal level. I just want to also point out this right as well. State level siting is rare for on-site backup generation, extremely rare, okay? We would be joining states like Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Texas, and Wyoming. We can look just to our neighbors to the north that have made this move in the last year or so. And I will tell you who does have state level siting, that's Minnesota. And I think we can probably all agree that we don't want to be like Minnesota. So in this, with that said, I would love your support. Stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193? Further remarks? Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the Prime.
State your question.
Yeah, Mr. Prime. Section 4, could you explain the relevance to that definition of carbon dioxide being included in a bill pertaining to electrical generation?
Senator Crabtree, do you wish to respond to that question?
I do. I appreciate the question from the good senator. So if you go back and you look to about, I think it was about 2008 where that comes into play here. And really, I would just point out this, is that is the actual definition that is there. So a number of the recent legislative responses to proposed carbon pipelines, things that this body has passed right now, that's the definition that was used to do that. And so, you know, we had, the good senator and I had talked about whether or not we wanted to scratch that from there because it doesn't it seems like it's an odd space. But what I'd say is I'm nervous about scratching it because I think it's the definition that you wanted and needed for the movement that you did last year. And so I think that's what defines that. So with that said, I'd stand by for any further questions.
Further remarks, Senator Lapke? No. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193, Senator Voida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, question for the Prime.
State your question.
By adding this backup generation in here the way we're adding it, are we effectively circumventing any process that the PUC would currently be regulating? Like, say, if this is exempted under this bill, it gets built, and a few months down the road, they decide that they wanted to hook up. Is that circumventing a current process?
Senator Crabtree, do you wish to respond to that question?
I do. Thanks to the good senator for the question. They don't want to connect. So I would just point out that piece to it right now. So when we're talking about the layers of protections or the layers of siting, the layers of review, we already have that at the local, state, and federal level that's happening with these types of projects. And so in this particular instance, they don't want to connect, and that's a separate process if they wanted to go down to connect to the grid. But they don't want to connect to the grid. They just want to be able to run their operation should they come offline. And we should want them to have these battery or these backup generation facilities, because that way we are, the grid operators will know that they are able to shut those guys down before they shut down Grandma Carol's house. And that's what I think we all would want.
Do you have any further remarks, Senator Voida?
Well, I'm just going to state for the record that I'm going to be a no on this because to me it's a very gray area. I think we're getting into current process and the process that would overlap with at the county levels, and I just can't vote yes on something that I'm uncomfortable with. So thanks.
All right. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193. Senator Carr.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I really respect our PUC. I know they oppose this, and I was preparing for floor, looking at this bill, and wanted to echo some of the concerns that the PUC had shared. I'm sure the good senator from Madison will likely try to address them. But, they had concerns about this creating a major siting loophole. So under this language, a 300 megawatt generator could be built as a backup, and then a month into that operation decide to become interconnected. And there is no provision in law requiring a permit at that time. It does not fall under the definition of to modify a facility in 49-41-2.2. Which would require a permit upon that sort of change in status. The PUC process is a contested case process, unlike a county process. The PUC process can take into consideration impacts on neighboring counties that are in the immediate vicinity. The PUC has the ability, because of the filing fee, to hire its own experts and even order an EIS. This particular bill, I think, creates a double standard. The economic, social, safety, healthy, and environmental impacts are the same for an interconnected facility as are non-interconnected facilities. So it seems illogical to treat them differently. I'm going to be opposing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193. Senator Colbeck.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to be supporting this. Senate Bill 193 actually relates to backup generation. Interconnection is a different thing, and it's a totally different process. So when backup generation goes in, we're talking about a utility who allows that to happen. So if we'll just break it way down to like solar. If I have solar on top of my house, you have to have an interconnection agreement with a utility. Why? Because that creates electricity. When the electricity goes down, like in a blackout, you have to have that interconnection agreement because you don't want your linemen to be electrocuted. So for this to happen, they would have to get the generation, build it, go through if it's in the city, they can't be any louder than the city noise ordinance. If it's in the county, they have to apply to all of those ordinances. So that's the regulation layers that we're talking about. And then if they wanted to go to an interconnection agreement, that would probably be another process with the utility to do that. So long story short, that is about 4 steps away from what we're talking about. Generation of a large users, there are other things in play besides the current definition under the PUC Siting Act, because they're broad. They require siting of generation types that are outside the scope, I believe, of the Siting Act, which was intended to regulate, which would be utilities. So remember that. We were talking about the Siting Act. They regulate utilities. What are we talking about now? Backup generation. Now they're going to regulate Walmart. They're going to Microsoft. Who are they going to regulate? We don't know. That's why we think backup generation is different. That's one reason. Second reason is we don't want their backup generation electrocuting our linemen. So why do we think it's taken care of? Because in that process, if you're going to build that much stuff, you already have to have, let's say, a diesel generator. Diesel generators are regulated by the EPA. Everything is regulated at the stack, right? So emissions, all of those types of things are regulated at the stack, just like my diesel truck is. So that's why we think that these are different layers. This bill will create a new definition for backup electric generation by defining backup electric generation as electric generation that is not interconnected to the electric grid to supply power and is used in the event that the primary grid is down, a blackout. So the current definition should be updated. That's what this bill does to keep up with technology and needs of businesses, manufacturing, and other things, create large amounts of highly reliable power. Please support 193.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193? Senator Hone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind everybody, we talked about earlier this session that not every county has planning and zoning. And so the PUC process is not redundant to the counties with a CUP process, and even where there is a CUP process, rather they are complementary. And I'm going to side with the PUC, and I will be voting no on this.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193? Further remarks? All right, Senator Crabtree in closing.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, senators, for a spirited debate. I want to go back and just reinforce a couple things. These are not connected to the grid. So we are talking about customers for the utility. We are talking about businesses. We are talking about an unnecessary regulation because you do have it at the local, the state, and the federal level. So you're just adding another layer of regulation in that you don't need and that all those other states don't have, but Minnesota does. I see no reason why we're going to vote for more regulation when it is completely unnecessary. I would appreciate your yes vote.
Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 193. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc? No. Carly? No. Crabtree? Aye. Davis? Aye. Dibert? Aye. Duhamel? Aye. Foster? No. Grove? No. Hone? No. Howard? Nay. Hulse? Aye. Jensen? No. Carr? Kolbeck? Yes. Lapke? No. Larson? Aye. Marty? No. Melhoff? Aye. Ms. Gimmons? Aye. Nelson? No. Otten? No. Perry? Yes. Peterson? No. Pischke? No. Reed? Aye. Roll? Sauter? Aye. Shanefish? Aye. Smith? Aye. Billhauer? Aye. Voigt? No. Voida? No. Whip? Aye. Zickman? Aye. Perry? No. Mr. President, we have 17 yeas and 17 nays with one excused.
Senate Bill 193 having failed to receive an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill lost. Senator Crabtree has made his intent to reconsider known. Senator Roll.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Well, we are joined today by a true podcasting legend, someone who has entertained and educated individuals around this state and beyond in a way like no other, a man dedicated to his craft and profession, someone who has ascended to the unimaginable heights in the podcasting world by using his intelligence and humor in an unrivaled way. He's done several different programs, each better than the previous, my personal favorite being Running Mates, which does a masterful job of telling the story of our presidents and their running mates, which is available on all streaming services under Dakota Town Hall. That person, of course, is our very own Senate President and Lieutenant Governor. However, the LT's assistant on the show is also here today, so I'd ask the body to welcome Brad Jorgensen to the chamber.
Welcome. Stand up.
Senate Bill 208. As a reminder, it has had its second reading, but as a reminder, an act to require the award of certain disbursements to prevailing owners and taxpayers in appeals of property classifications or assessments.
Senate Bill 208, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. And I want to remind the body this was deferred yesterday by the invoking of Rule 517, so we have a pending amendment that was offered by Senator Peterson. So Senator Peterson, perhaps you'd like to begin by reminding us of what your pending amendment was.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I believe this is a good bill, and I just feel like the amendment makes it better. It removes the section that contains the word hinder, and I believe that if we are told in our Constitution that we have property rights, but if we then choose to exercise those property rights and are penalized for that, I think we're stripped of those property rights, or we didn't have them in the first place. So I feel like taking out Section 3 just clarifies that and makes this a better bill. So I would ask for your support on the amendment and then your support on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion to amend, Senator Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I don't like going against my seatmate, so I'm excited for this bill to eventually be over with today. But I just want to address the concern that the Section 3 of the bill that we're trying to amend here will hurt property rights. So that's not what Section 3 does. Nothing in this bill expands government power, nothing changes trespass law, nothing overrides the Fourth Amendment. The government cannot walk into your home without consent or lawful authority. This bill does not change that. Let's remember something very important, that this is taxpayer dollars on both sides of the equation. And when someone challenges an assessment and asks for disbursements, those attorney's fees are going to come from taxpayers, not just some abstract account. And if the assessment was incorrect because the owner themselves was the reason why the Director of Equalization could not properly assess the property, then you don't get your attorney's fees. That's it. If you don't want someone coming into your home to verify that the facts that are in dispute in your lawsuit that you brought to help get it right, that's absolutely your right. Your home is your castle. That's the law. This bill does not change that. But if you sue, if you choose to sue, and you block the verification that's caused the very error that you're suing for, then you don't get to turn around and send the bill for the legal fight to the taxpayers. That's all this section is trying to do. That's basic fairness. And here's just one other analogy. When you sue anyone in any court, you're subject to discovery. If you put the facts at issue, if you bring a lawsuit and you put facts at issue, the other side that you're suing gets to verify them. That's not bullying anyone. That's actually another part of the Constitution. It's called due process. You can't file a lawsuit, refuse to produce documentation, or refuse to allow someone to prove their point, refuse inspection of evidence, and then expect the other side to pay for your legal fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Senator Whipf.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm not an attorney, so I will respect everything that was just said. I do know, though, you have, yes, absolutely every right to refuse entry to your home. You also have every right to give up the ability to raise an argument in court. Both of those are your rights. I'm sorry that maybe some individuals that live in Lincoln County have had negative experiences, but I think you're getting what this bill does confused with something completely separate. I ask that you all oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion to amend? Further remarks on the motion to amend? Senator Peterson, anything in closing?
Yes, just to close out a little bit. I think we're getting a little bit confused and a little bit in the weeds here, and I don't want to do that. But the refusal to allow someone to enter your property doesn't happen after you file a lawsuit, as my good seatmate described. It happens before. So you're not refusing discovery. You're not refusing someone to gather facts after the lawsuit. You're refusing entry because it's your property right to do so, and that should not be held against you. Otherwise, you don't have that property right. I ask you to support the amendment and support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks on the motion to amend, this is a voice vote. Roll call has been requested. Is he supported? He is. This is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 15 yeas, 19 nays.
So the motion to amend fails, and we are back on Senate Bill 208. Further remarks, Senator Hulse.
I'll just keep it brief. All the bill does is allow you to recover your attorney's fees if you win and sue your county. Pretty simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 208. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 208. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas with 1 excused.
So, Senate Bill 208 having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Senate Bill 237, an act to require that counties provide written notice to township supervisors of conditional use applications and appeals.
Senate Bill 237, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 237 establishes a standard 10-day township notice requirement for conditional use permits in South Dakota. When a project has the potential to significantly impact county roads, drainage systems, utilities, or other shared public assets, it is important that the right people are informed early and have the opportunity to weigh in. Projects tend to move more smoothly when expectations are clearly laid out at the beginning. When infrastructure concerns are identified and addressed up front, there is less risk for surprises later, whether that means public opposition, costly redesigns, or legal challenges. By ensuring proper notice, this bill helps surface potential issues early where they can be resolved more efficiently. This legislation also protects public investments. Counties and townships maintain thousands of miles of roads and critical infrastructure with very limited budgets. When a proposed use affects those systems, it is reasonable to have a timeline for evaluating that impact. And doing so protects both taxpayers and the project applicants by making sure everyone can operate from the same set of expectations. This bill is a culmination of extensive work and discussion among many leaders from across the state. I was proud to have the support of the Township Association and the Counties Association. The resulting language represents a compromise that represents the interests of those most affected by the permitting process. Ultimately, Senate Bill 237 helps promote responsible growth. It builds trust in the conditional use permitting process and provides clarity to applicants and those that are affected. When communities feel heard and infrastructure impacts can be addressed proactively, projects are more likely to move forward efficiently and with long-term support. And with that, I ask you to vote yes, please, on Senate Bill 237.
Thank you for the remarks on Senate Bill 237. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I was the lone no vote in committee on this, and I've got some concerns here. First of all, if you look at the original bill, it's a page and a quarter of about, and this hog house, or the bill as it stands now with the amendment, is a couple sentences. And so to me, it's not a compromise. It looks like somebody, a one-sided, somebody got their way. And some of the things that concern me about it is the fact that the word county. Who in the county? Who will be doing this? Will it be the auditor? Will it be the board president? Will it be the chairman of the county and planning and zoning board? Who will be in charge of doing that notice? And it says written notice. What is it? What do you mean by a written notice? Do you mean certified mail? And that's the thing. Certified mail was in the original bill before it was changed. Why? Because certified mail, you're going to make sure it's going to get there. Now it just says written notice. What does that mean? A text? Hand them a note? What does that mean? And then finally, I didn't mention this in my testimony in committee, but it was mentioned by the opponent, is the 10-day beforehand. 10 days, I mean, if you've been here in Pierre, 10 days goes pretty fast. And so, again, in the original bill, we were talking about 45 days. We were talking about 30 days. And so going back down to 10 concerns me. So those are the things that are bothering me about this bill, and I will be a no vote here on the floor as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the remarks on Senate Bill 237. Senator Dibert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a few things clear here. In most counties that have townships and they have conditional use permits, this is already being done. What this does is standardizes it and makes sure it's done. So on a conditional use permit, if you don't have zoning, you don't have conditional use permits. So that takes care of a number of the counties. Also, when a county does this with a conditional use permit and they have zoning, the notifications are handed through the auditor's office. They go out in the newspaper, you publish twice, plus you would give this courtesy notice to the townships. There's a process in place. This just makes townships aware of what's going on. So I really like this bill because the counties will work very closely with the townships to make sure they're communicating, or they'll come in and protest it, or they'll take it to court. So the Board of Adjustment, you cannot have a referendum from those, but you still have to put public notice out. And if you don't do things exactly right, you're opening yourself up to litigation. So I really like this. They'll work it out. They've done it in the past, and they'll have a way to confirm that they have that notice to protect their actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 237? Further remarks, Senator Hone.
So I was talking with a dear friend of mine who was telling me how she sent in her payment for her garbage bill, and it took 3 weeks to get to the garbage carrier. And so just keep that in mind when you're voting for this. I think that 10 days is very short, especially the way that our postal service has been operating. And I think that this bill could use a lot more clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 237? Senator Davis in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. The townships want notice. They want to be at the table. And this is language that they're comfortable with. And the flexibility in this bill allows them and the counties to figure out a way that works best for them. Because we know it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? What might work in Clay County might not work in Union. And so that's why that's in there. Again, the townships want notice, and I want them to have notice too. I want them to be at the table when these decisions are being made. I want them to have notice. They're comfortable with this time frame. And if they don't get notice, well, then the counties are breaking the law. And so that's why that's also in there. That's why we're trying to pass this bill, to make sure they have notice. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 237. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, pardon, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Foster. Mr. President, we have 26 yeas, 8 nays, 1 excused.
So, Senate Bill 237, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. Second reading of House bills.
House Bill 1012, an act to revise and repeal provisions allowing probation for contempt of a custody or visitation decree.
House Bill 1012, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, colleagues, this is a cleanup bill that UJS is doing. It is a total repeal if you look at it. What the law was for, oddly, was if you had contempt for custody or visitation decree, and I don't know that it was ever used, but the purpose was that you as that individual who's in contempt would be put on probation. And so that's awkward for a probation officer since they don't get involved in custody disputes. And so UJS said perhaps it's best if we're just removed completely from this process. There are many other ways that a judge can handle someone who's in contempt and doing bad stuff when it comes to custody visitation, up to and including putting that person in jail. So there's really no reason for a probation officer to be a part of this when we have mediators and all of that already in our system. So I would just ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1012? Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, as you guys probably noticed, I was the one lone no vote in committee. And self-admittedly, I mean, as you guys know, the pace of which session comes at us here is very quickly, and so I haven't had a long time to study this. But just here, sitting here in the last 5 minutes, I have been looking at these laws in 25-4A, and it does talk about other statutes that were in that same bill in 1994. And so without going into depth, it's hard to understand exactly where and why these statutes were applicable. And so if you look at 25-4A 1, 2, and 3, they all do talk about contempt. And so, yes, self-admittedly, maybe a probation officer is not the correct thing, and maybe some of these parents that do violate the visitation order should have a probation officer, and that's what the intent was back in 1994. I don't know. So, and even with that, I will self-admit that even 25-4A-5 talks about the sanctions for a violation of custody or visitation decree. So some of this has been handled, but I just don't feel comfortable eliminating it at this time, and that's why I have voted no. You guys can do what you want, but that's just kind of what's going on in that chapter of law. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1012? Further remarks? Senator Grove, you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I would just say this, that probation is not really the proper place for custody disputes. We have a different branch that handles all of that stuff, and if the person is in a bad enough situation, the judge literally can put them in jail. And so I think that UJS is just trying to make the books really good and clean and would like this repealed. So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1012. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 1 nay, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1012, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. Senator Davis.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Well, up in the gallery, there's some green jackets sitting up there, so I'd like them to stand. They are a part of the 4-H Ambassador Program, and so this is their learning day at the Capitol. They've been following a couple legislators around, learning what it's like to be a legislator. So just as a former 4-H alum, loved the program, loved growing up. My son's in 4-H now, and it's just a great program. And I know the ambassador program and the 4-H Day at the Capitol being up here is one of their newer programs. And so I'm just so glad to see them up here learning from us today. So please help me welcome them.
Welcome.
House Bill 1062, an act to revise a provision related to aggravated assault.
House Bill 1062, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President, I'd like to move Amendment 1062A.
1062A has been moved and seconded, and it's been posted. Do you have any remarks on that amendment?
The amendment simply adds one word, realistically. Realistically simulating a deadly weapon. It's what the opponents asked for.
All right, further remarks on the motion to amend? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. We are back on the bill then. Further remarks on House Bill 1062, Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My fellow senators, I stand today in support of House Bill 1062 as amended. This is an act to revise the provision related to aggravated assault. I want to start off by telling you what this bill is not. It is not about finger guns. This bill is not about criminalizing kids playing cops and robbers with Roy Rogers toy guns. Certainly not a bill that degrades our Second Amendment. This is a bill that says if you use a physical object realistically simulating a deadly weapon to intimidate or put another person in fear of imminent, seriously bodily harm, you have committed and may be charged with aggravated assault. This is an increasingly dangerous issue in South Dakota, as you can see from the handout from a very realistic fake gun. This brings aggravated assault in line with our robbery statute. Keep in mind, an aggravated assault charge requires that component of intent. Intent to menace, an intent to put a person at great fear, an intent to terrorize. If that intent can be proven, the charge should be aggravated assault, regardless if the weapon is real or not.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 1062, Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. President, I was a no vote on this in the committee, and my concern was that I just thought it made a far too strict penalty for somebody brandishing a toy gun. I was accused of being soft on crime. I came back and said I'm only airsoft on crime. The amendment to the bill satisfies me, and I would urge everybody to vote for it.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1062, Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was also a no vote. And the reason why is because without realistically, if you look at this gun, it looks like a real gun. And so we kind of chuckled. I heard a little bit of that in the gallery here. But if you have a child, a son in particular, which I do, everything is a gun. Go outside, everything is a gun when they're little. And they run and they play. It doesn't, this looks like a real gun. And so if you had a child that was running around, and I don't care how old they are, let's say 14, 15 years old, and someone sees them, that's all this bill has to do. Someone has to see them and call in and say that we are in danger here. You have a child who has something that looks like a real gun. And so that is why realistically is extremely important, so that we can allow kids to be kids or whomever, and the bad guys can be the bad guys and we can put them in jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1062, Senator Blanc.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I also was in judiciary when we heard all the testimony on this, and I was a yes vote then. I'll be a yes vote now, and I'm going to tell you why. Put yourselves in the mind of a bad guy. It's easier for some of us to do than others in this chamber. I know some of your backgrounds. I'm not looking at you for a reason.
Name names. Name names.
I've talked to some of your moms. Here's the deal. Put your mind in, just think like a bad guy for a second. It's a stretch for some. You know that if you are, you know that you're going to go and rob a Circle K or a convenience store or something, and you're catching that person by surprise. All of a sudden, you are taking what, as the picture that you have on your desks, you don't have time to analyze that. All of a sudden, it's at your temple. You're going to say, take my wallet, anything, just don't take my life. And if you're a bad guy, and you know that law right now says that if you don't use a real weapon, that your sentence would be reduced from you using, I don't like the term toy gun or fake gun, because we're talking about an airsoft that looks real. We're talking about a BB gun that looks real. You have no idea. And when we talked to some of the testimony that came up from the woman that was from the Sheriff's Association, she said, the trauma is the same. Somebody comes and sticks a Glock next to your temple, and you later find out that it's an airsoft or a BB gun. Is that going to remove the trauma? Of course not. Let me give you a realistic situation. In our development, there is, when you're in a newer development and there's construction bins everywhere that are designed for when those contractors working on that home, they can dump their construction debris in there. Well, one of the neighbors in the neighborhood thought that he could just, instead of running to the dump, he could just go and dump everything there. Well, he was told by the construction superintendents that they could not dump there. What the gentleman did, out of his waistband, he took a gun, laid it on his tailgate, and continued to take his trash and out of his truck and dump it in the construction bin. Well, the superintendent called the cops. Cops came, interviewed the person. Turns out it's a BB gun, but it looks like a 380, maybe even a 9. And so the police officers, they didn't arrest him. He wasn't brandishing a weapon because it was a BB gun. This is good legislation. This is something that we need. I'm not sure why we're having the discussion about it. So I'm encouraging you vote yes on 1062.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1062? Further remarks? Senator Foster, I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh, question for the sponsor. State your question.
Thank you. Does this only apply if the gun is actively used in the assault and not just found later on the person?
Senator Duhamel, do you wish to respond to that?
Thank you. You must prove intent. It requires intent. Intent to menace, intent to put a person at great fear, intent to terrorize. If that can be proven, the charge would be aggravated assault. We're an open carry state. You can carry guns. You can carry a machine gun. You can carry a water gun. That's not criminal. You have to put somebody in fear of bodily harm.
Follow up. State your question.
So I'd like to clarify, if there is an assault done, but it is not with the weapon, but the fake weapon, but the fake weapon is later found on the person in a bag, the assault has occurred, just not with the use of the weapon. Will the charge still be upgraded because they had the fake gun on them?
Senator Duhamel, do you wish to respond to that?
There's charging discretion from the prosecutor. I can't talk to just a potential idea that could happen if it's found in a bag. I think not. This is putting somebody in fear of bodily harm using a very realistically looking weapon. If it's in a bag, you wouldn't even know they have a gun.
Further remarks, Senator Foster?
Yes. So the situation that I bring up, it has actually occurred, and had they considered that the perpetrator who did commit a crime was later found with a fake gun in their bag, did not use it in the attempt of the assault because it was among two peers, I believe, gang members, but he was charged initially with the gun, and my clarification was but it was dropped because it was a fake gun, if even though he committed the assault, if the charges would have been up. So I'll be a no just because there's that slippery slope, and he didn't use the gun in the assault, and just for future, I'd be concerned about that.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1062? Further remarks? Senator Duhamel, anything in closing? No. All right. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1062. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickmund, Grove, Hone,
Nelson, no.
Nelson votes no. Jensen votes no. Mr. President, we have 28 yeas, 6 nays, 1 excused.
So, House Bill 1062, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, esteemed correct. We are up to signing of bills. The Constitution of South Dakota requires that bills be signed in open session and have their title read, and I am signing 5 bills today. The first is Senate Bill 73, an act to revise provisions relating to state financial practices. Now the President is signing House Bill 1003, an act to amend provisions pertaining to the required criminal background investigation of certain school employees. Now the President is signing House Bill 1019, an act to revise provisions regarding pesticide laws. Now the President is signing House Bill 1035, an act to modify provisions related to the licensure of public accountants. And finally, the President is signing House Bill 1201, an act to authorize the use of bingo games, lotteries, and pull-tab devices by booster clubs. Announcements. Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. The most efficient committee in the chamber, the Transportation, has all their bills done, so they will not meet Monday morning.
Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess local government is as efficient, if not more. We will not have a meeting Monday morning.
Senator Lapke, I bet you're meeting Monday.
And the good senator from Lawrence County is the most efficient because they dump everything off on our committee. But Monday morning, 7:30, we will be holding a very lengthy bill hearing, and we'll be huddling at 7:15.
All right, Senator Roll.
I guess I would just like to point out I serve on transportation and local government, so I think I'd be the common link.
You're the common denominator. Okay. Further announcements. Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Health and Human Services, yes, we have a meeting, 8 o'clock Monday.
Anybody else? All right.
Senator Voida moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
It has been moved that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Have a good weekend.